It is the ultimate April Fool's prank. On April 1st here in Muskegon, it rained. I am recording this on April 11th, and for the past 9 consecutive days, it has snowed here in Muskegon. It's sunny today. Let's go sledding. Hi, I'm John Jacobson with Picture Michigan, not to be confused with Pure Michigan. I get asked once in a while, been asked recently. No, we are not related in any way. Picture Michigan has been doing its awesome stuff since 1998. Of course, Travel Michigan is much older than that, and Travel Michigan came up with the Pure Michigan ad campaign in 2006. We're not related except for our great love for our great state, because that's Pure Michigan. Yeah, I'd say we're at the end of the road here, or as the case is, the end of the tracks. What if I were to say you could take the train to Milwaukee? Well, there was a day when freight trains caught a ferry and crossed the lake over to Milwaukee. It wasn't it was a passenger ferry for hobos. Let's go and explore other ways to get to Milwaukee. Grab your can of baked beans and let's learn. Yeah, that'll work. You could drive. It would be quicker than swimming. Yeah, probably not. Perhaps here. We are at Muskegon County Airport, where they meet all of your aviation needs. Boy, I should be a copywriter at an ad agency. I feel a Clio coming on. Yes, Lake Michigan restaurants, and it is totally cool that these guys have got an elementary school named after them. Even though it's spelled wrong, in the end, it doesn't even matter. Check it out. This is how you get to the car ferry. That takes you to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and that's where Richie Cunningham and Mork from Ork are from. Yeah, I guess technically Mork from Ork is from Ork and not from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But if you really want to split hairs with us, Robin Williams is from Michigan. Take that, Wisconsin. So you know, it wasn't that long ago, about a week ago, I was last recording the last episode of this vlog, and boy, heinous thunderstorms, close lightning strikes. It was a year ago today, and let's call it a year and 2 days, that a massive tornado ripped through and flattened a little town in northern Illinois. So I'm not a storm chaser, but if a storm is going to chase me down, I'll set up the camera and try to get a photograph of what I can possibly get. So that storm that spawned the tornado that leveled that little town in northern Illinois was headed this way, and as it was heading over the lake, it was losing a lot of steam. Didn't think it would make it here. It made it here, still lots of lightning, and it was right here at this spot that I shot this shot. And the next shot, I had winds so strong it wanted to knock over my camera tripod. I mean, it was a pretty heinous wind. It had to be the strongest I'd ever experienced. I was not thinking tornado, but I was thinking flying debris. So naturally, grabbed everything that I could, threw it in the car, and I headed home. The next day on the news, it was reported that an F0 tornado hit 2 miles from here.
But if you look above, the roof's been completely blown off.
Now, I'm not claiming this was some close encounter with a tornado and I'm some big shot storm chaser, but not by any stretch of the imagination. But I gotta admit, I was a little scared, and it was a wake-up call. Photo tips for when photographing lightning. And I want to remind you that these 3 tips are going to be more about what's in the viewfinder than camera settings. Now, when shooting lightning, yeah, camera settings are kind of important too, and so is the gear in some ways. Stay tuned for after the closing credits. We'll take care of them then. Tip number 1, be safe, please. I mean, duh, just be safe. We sometimes dare to go out on the ice thinking we're not going to fall through the ice. Occasionally, some people buy a lotto ticket thinking they might win the lotto. Someone always does. Or we might go out photographing lightning, thinking, well, the chances of me getting struck by lightning are the same as winning the lotto. But we still go out and buy a ticket anyway, don't we? Stay safe. There's two obvious choices of being safe. There's either being safe or not being safe. Being safe meaning staying within the comfort and coziness of your own home. And then there are other options. Perhaps you're going to go out and play golf. Perhaps you're going to go out and photograph the lightning. So by be safe, I mean be aware of your surroundings. If a sudden burst of wind churns stuff up, what's going to start blowing at you? I personally don't get too far away from my car, and by that I mean about 20 feet. Also be aware of the consequences of, if the worst thing that happens to me is I get soaking wet from a drench of rain, well, don't forget you've got camera gear that you want to somehow try and keep dry and all of that. Tip number 2, find an interesting place to shoot the lightning. Remember, this is about storytelling. And by this, I mean be mindful of the storytelling. Is there something worth contrast? Is there something worth context? Is there something worth complimenting? So for instance, power lines is good. This photo here with an abandoned swing set works well. The softness of a swing set versus the violence of the lightning. Now, if you're just getting started and you're shooting lightning from your backyard to get your feet a little wet and to learn a little bit more about your settings, that's great. Don't expect that to be an image worth showing off, but you are taking a step closer into getting that killer lightning shot. There is a point where you think you got the killer lightning shot, and you just always got to be aware of what you want to show off and what you don't want to show off, what you think is just the best thing you've ever done, and then you see someone else that's done it better. My colleague in Grand Haven shot this shot. Walter, you won't be needing this anymore. You suck. Seriously, that's a great shot. I'm just going to sell my camera gear, and I'm going to call it quits now. I'm sure we all know I'm kidding around. I'm a huge admirer of Walter's work, and I'm going to link to his Facebook page in the information section below. I'd also like to add that you don't need the most sophisticated equipment to take photos of lightning. A couple of shots here I took while on Mackinac Island. What better background to have for a lightning shot than Mackinac Island? All I did was make sure this camera was set secure, my thumb on the trigger, and as soon as I sensed that lightning, I pulled that trigger. Do you need lightning quick reflexes? Well, yeah, almost, but it is doable. And keep in mind that these photos were taken back in the days of film. Just a couple of rolls is all I went through on this one. No need to take 1,000 shots just to get that lightning shot. And tip number 3, remember to keep that horizon level. With something as dramatic as lightning photography and storm photography, we really don't need to intentionally tilt the camera, get that Dutch angle going on, because the storm is dramatic enough. What we really want to be careful of, again, is don't accidentally tilt the camera. Make sure the horizon is level. Refer back to episode 4 for more on the art of the Dutch angle. And lastly, this is the key ingredient here: patience, 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 patience. There will be times the camera's not pointed in the right direction. There will be times when you're going to hear that crack of thunder and you don't even see any lightning. There will be times when all you're going to end up doing is getting wet. Just patience, patience, patience. Keep pulling that trigger. Hey, that's a great way to end this thing. I'm John with Picture Michigan. Keep pulling that trigger. Okay, this vlog is supposed to be about photo tips that are about what's in the viewfinder first. 80% of the photo making process is in the viewfinder first. I don't want to do settings since we're in the outtakes here, I'll try and think of something funny to say and cover the settings for photographing lightning. I've got nothing funny to say. Okay, now, first and foremost, you really need a rock-solid tripod. You also are going to need, frankly, a decent lens, a lens that doesn't offer up too much in the way of chromatic aberration, where there's going to be extreme lightness and darkness right next to each other, a la the lightning strike. If you don't know what the chromatic aberration is, it's that little green and purple area that you're going to see right where brightness meets darkness. That's from a cheap lens. Now, cable release. That's so that you're not clicking on the camera. Instead, you got a cable and it goes click, 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 click as you go along. Let's see. Oh, shoot in RAW. Don't shoot in JPEG. You're going to need to shoot in RAW. Now, here's why. This has to do with camera settings. With your camera settings, f-stop, I'm going to be running anywhere from f4 to f8. That is a 2-stop difference. Now, you don't know how bright this lightning is going to be based on intensity of the lightning strike, and then the distance of it. It can be a lot brighter or a lot bright or a lot brighter. It's not really going to be a lot darker. Now, the thing about lightning is that it is an instantaneous flash, just like the flash on a camera. I will typically leave my shutter open for the full 30 seconds. And if I get a lightning strike in the first 5, I'll just let the shutter stay open for the next 30 seconds. And there have actually been occasions where I've gotten 2 completely separate lightning strikes all within that 30-second period. That's bonus. That makes for awesome photography. Now, with that said, once you've got this RAW file and you take it into, say, Photoshop or Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw, or perhaps you've got Photoshop Express, the RAW file will give you an extra 2 stops of leeway going either way, if you have to darken the image or if you have to brighten the image up a pinch. That's why we want to shoot in RAW. If you've got a JPEG file coming out of your camera, you gotta get it spot on. That just takes too much luck. There's enough luck behind getting that lightning shot in the first place. You don't want to take a chance to luck in getting the exposure right on that one also. Now, let's talk color temperature. This is another advanced one. We're going to talk about this in another lesson. Every source of light virtually has its own color temperature. One of those long tube fluorescent lights gives off a green hue, whereas bright sunshine in the middle of the day gives off more of a blue hue. A typical old-fashioned tungsten incandescent light bulb will give off a yellow. Now, lightning is white, and then it's extremely white on top of that. I would dare say lightning is way whiter than the sunshine that we experience here on planet Earth. So, you're in Lightroom, you're in Photoshop, Adobe Camera Raw, use these settings in your white balance. Go for 4500 on the color temperature, and then on the tint slider, go for -45. Boy, it's taken me years to figure this out. I don't know if I'm still on board with this one, but I think that's the color of lightning. That is, I think that's when lightning is producing a white color, and I think that's proper. I used to think it was purple. I was wrong. I might be wrong about these things, but I hope those help out. I'm John. Keep pulling that trigger. Of course, we got a lot of boats. We're on a big lake.